$147,000. That's how much my husband gambled away while I was planning our future. I found out sitting across from a mortgage broker, smiling, handing over documents like we were a normal couple building a normal life. The number on the screen didn't make sense. I asked her to refresh it. She did. I felt the air leave my body. That was the moment I realized I had been living inside a lie, and I was the only one who didn't know. She looked at me with this careful expression. Not surprise. Not confusion. Just patience. Like she had delivered this kind of news before. I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. I just sat there staring at a number that had erased 7 years of my life. And the worst part, he was waiting for me in the parking lot. Smiling, I need you to understand who I was before all of this, because I wasn't naive. I wasn't careless. I was careful, methodical, the kind of person who kept a spreadsheet for grocery budgets. I grew up in a household where money was tight and unpredictable, so I made a decision early that would never be my adult life. I worked my way through school. No help, no safety net. I took a job in healthcare administration right out of college, and I stayed there. Built a career slowly, year by year. By the time I was in my early 30s, I had a savings account I was genuinely proud of. Not rich, but stable, grounded. That was everything to me. I was the person my friends called when they needed financial advice. I tracked our joint account every single week. I thought I knew exactly where we stood. I thought I was in control. Marcus and I met the way a lot of people do, through mutual friends, at a birthday dinner neither of us wanted to attend. He was funny, genuinely funny. Not the kind of funny that performs for a room, the kind that catches you off guard in a quiet moment. We dated for almost 2 years before we moved in together, and another 2 before we got married. He was a project manager at a construction firm. Good salary. Responsible on paper. I remember his mother pulling me aside at our engagement party and saying, "You're the best thing that ever happened to him." I held on to that. We had a plan. 5 years to save. Then the house. Then maybe a family. We talked about it constantly. We had a folder on the shared drive labeled House Fund. He would add things to it. Paint swatches. Yard layouts. He seemed just as invested as I was. I believed that. I really believed that. Looking back, the signs were there. They always are. I just didn't speak the language yet. The first thing I noticed was the cash withdrawals. Small ones. $60 here. $80 there. He said it was for lunches with clients. He said his boss preferred cash for certain things. It made just enough sense that I let it go. Then there were the nights he stayed late at work. More than usual. Sometimes past 10. He'd come home quieter than normal, a little distracted. I told myself he was stressed about a project deadline. Because that's what you do when you trust someone. You fill the gaps with the most generous explanation. There was one evening I walked into the kitchen, and he closed his laptop too fast. I noticed. I even paused. He looked up and smiled and said, "Fantasy football, don't judge me." I laughed. I walked away. I wish I hadn't walked away. It was about 8 months before the mortgage appointment that things started feeling genuinely wrong. Not just off. Wrong. I logged into our joint savings account to transfer our monthly deposit. And the balance was lower than it should have been. Not by a little. By almost $4,000. I sat there staring at the screen for a full minute. When I asked Marcus about it, he had an answer ready. Almost too ready. He said he'd moved some funds to a different account to get a better interest rate. He'd been meaning to tell me. He seemed calm. Reasonable. I asked him to send me the account details. He said he would. He never did. I asked again 2 weeks later. He got a little irritated. Said I was micromanaging. That I didn't trust him. And I backed down. Because I didn't want to be the paranoid wife who couldn't let her husband handle one thing. That moment of self-doubt cost me more than I will ever be able to calculate. The mortgage appointment had been on the calendar for 6 weeks. I had prepared everything. Pay stubs. Tax returns. Bank statements. I was so proud of that folder. I walked in feeling ready. The broker was warm, efficient. She pulled our financials up on her screen and started working through the numbers. And then she went quiet. Just for a second. She asked me to confirm the spelling of Marcus's name. She asked if we had any other accounts she should be aware of. Something in her tone made my stomach turn. She turned the screen toward me. Our joint savings account, the one labeled house fund, the one I had been depositing into for 7 years, had a balance of $312. Not $312,000. Not $31,200. $312. I asked her to refresh the page. She did. I watched the number stay exactly the same. 7 years. $147,000. Gone. And somewhere in that building, across a parking lot, my husband was sitting in our car, waiting. He already knew that number. He had always known. I don't remember walking to the car. I just remember opening the door. He looked up from his phone, grinning. How'd it go? I sat down. I closed the door. I looked straight ahead for a long moment. Then I said, the account has $312 in it. Where is our money? The grin disappeared. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he started talking. Slowly at first, then faster, like if he said enough words it would somehow explain $147,000. He said it started small. Online poker. Then sports betting. Then he found a casino about 40 minutes from where we lived. He said he kept thinking he could win it back. That's always what they think. He was crying by the end, asking me to understand, asking me to forgive him before I'd even had 30 seconds to breathe. I felt something harden inside me in that car. Not anger. Something colder than that. I looked at him and I thought, you planned our future with me while you were destroying it. Who does that? The weeks after that were the hardest of my life. I stayed in the house because I had nowhere to go and no money to get there. That is a particular kind of trap that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Marcus went to a gambler's anonymous meeting twice, then stopped. He said it wasn't for him. He cried every few days. He kept saying he was sorry. And I could see that he meant it, in the way that people mean things when the damage is already done. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd lie awake running numbers in my head. 7 years. Roughly $750 a month. Every car repair I'd skipped. Every vacation I hadn't taken. Every weekend I'd worked overtime. All of it. Gone. I went to work. I came home. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water and stared at nothing. My closest friend, Diane, noticed something was wrong. She came over one evening and sat with me. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. Because saying it out loud made it real. And I wasn't ready for it to be real. The decision didn't come dramatically. There was no single, lightning bolt moment. It came quietly, on a Tuesday morning before work. I was sitting in the car in my own driveway. I couldn't even make myself go back inside. And I thought about my grandmother. She raised 3 kids after her husband left her with nothing. No warning. No plan. She built something from a floor that didn't exist. And I thought, if she could do that, I could at least open a laptop. So I did. I started researching. Marital financial fraud. Asset dissipation. Divorce proceedings. Legal protections for financial abuse. What I found changed the entire shape of what I thought was possible. Marcus thought this was over. He thought I would forgive and rebuild alongside him, and we would move on. He had not considered what I might do when I had the full picture in front of me and nothing left to lose. I hired a divorce attorney 3 weeks after the mortgage appointment. Her name was Carol. She was small, soft-spoken, and absolutely relentless. She told me something in our first meeting that I wrote down and kept. She said, the money may be gone, but the accountability doesn't have to be. In several states and jurisdictions, gambling away marital assets is considered dissipation of marital funds, and courts take it seriously. Carol advised me to document everything. Every withdrawal. Every casino visit I could verify. Every date, every amount. I pulled 7 years of bank statements. I requested records. I built a timeline that was 43 pages long. I did not tell Marcus any of this. He thought we were in couples counseling mode. He thought I was processing. He would come home and ask how I was feeling, and I would say, "I'm working through it." That was true. I was working through every page of evidence I had. Every single one. The divorce proceedings took 4 months. Marcus hired an attorney who I suspect he paid for with the credit card he'd opened in his own name. Another thing I hadn't known about. But Carol was ready for all of it. She presented the dissipation case clearly and completely. 43 pages. Every dollar documented. The judge was not warm about it. I watched Marcus's attorney try to reframe the gambling as a medical issue, as an addiction that deserved compassion in asset division. And look, I'm not without empathy for addiction. I know it's real. But compassion and financial consequence are not the same thing. The court agreed. Because of the documented dissipation, I was awarded a significantly larger share of our remaining marital assets, including his retirement account, which he had not yet touched, $89,000. I was also awarded the equity from the sale of a rental property we had purchased together early in our marriage. That sale brought $54,000. I walked out of that marriage with $143,000, not the $147,000 he took, but close enough that I could breathe again. And he had to start from nothing. I watched him realize that in real time. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Solid ground. 2 years out, I am in a house I own. My name only. I bought it with a conventional loan and a down payment I rebuilt from scratch. I sleep well now. Not perfectly, but well. I think about that version of me sitting in the mortgage broker's office sometimes. The way the air left my body. I used to wish I could go back and warn her. But I've stopped doing that. Because the woman who walked into that office was trusting and careful and loved someone fully. And there is nothing wrong with that. What was wrong was what he did with that trust. I learned something through all of this that I want to leave you with. Financial transparency in a relationship is not about distrust. It's about respect. It is not controlling to want to see your own accounts. It is not paranoid to ask questions when the numbers don't add up. You are allowed to know what is yours. Never let anyone make you feel small for knowing that. Thank you for sitting with this story. If it moved you, if it made you feel something, hit like and subscribe to Dossier Karma. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever trusted someone completely and had that trust used against you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.